Shout out a player that you think could get traded. You're watching NFL Daily by Chat Sports, and I'm Mitchell Renz. Today's show, I'm going to give you 8 players that I think could get traded post NFL Draft. The first name on the list really shouldn't surprise anyone. It's Yannick Ngakoue, defensive end of the Jacksonville Jaguars, because Jacksonville just continues to take calls on Ngakoue because he has made it plain, simple, clear that he wants to be out of Duval. Now, when I first saw this come out about him wanting to move on, he put it on Twitter, he put it on Instagram, and he has been the one player this entire offseason that has been very, very vocal about wanting to move on and wanting to get out of the situation that he's in. When you look at what kind of value he's going to bring to whatever team he's on, he could stay in Jacksonville, he could go to another team, but you're looking at a player who is 25 years old and in his 4 seasons in the NFL has racked up 37.5 sacks. But not just being able to get after the quarterback, Yannick has actually also been a very solid player in the run defense as well. Sure, you can look at see how great the Jags defense has kind of been the last 3 years, and his best year did come in 2017. I don't know if we'll get another year like 2017, but if I'm a playoff caliber team, if I am a team that thinks like I can make a run at a Super Bowl, I'll tell you what, right now, I'm going to go hit up the Jags. I'm going to say, how much is it going to cost? It's probably going to cost between $18, $19, $20 million to get them. So why not go out and get yourself a player like Yannick Ngakoue? So we had a lot of new subscribers from the 2020 NFL Draft. And in fact, we got 11,000 in just in those 3 days. And first off, I want to say thank you very much for everyone who's tuned in. We were the #1 most watched draft coverage, but that's only a fraction of what we do here. We drop new NFL videos every single day. And if you're looking for content, if you're looking for just something to make your life a little bit normal right now with everything going on around the world, go ahead, click that subscribe button. If you can't remember what it is, I'll put it in the description, or you can just type in youtube.com/chatsportstv. Let's keep the show moving here. Jetting along. See what I did there? Maybe too early? Who knows? Jamal Adams. And if Jamal Adams hits the trade market, he is going to be a player that every single NFL team is going to be after. Now, the reason why we continue to talk about Adams is because during the regular season back in 2019, the Jets told Adams that, hey, man, we are not going to trade you. And then what they do? About 24 hours later, they were taking trade calls on Adams. And ever since then, he's been kind of unhappy. It's been a relationship where you don't really know if you can trust your significant other. But let's get one thing straight. You can trust Jamal Adams on the football field, because I would even argue he's a top 3 safety. He's a top 10 defensive player right now. And entering his fourth year. Entering his 3rd year out of LSU. He's a captain. He's a leader. He is one of the best players on the defense. And in fact, he is one of the best players when he steps on the field. Some of the teams that you could connect, I think Adams to, obviously is going to be the Dallas Cowboys, which I know is a very, very popular choice. But again, you're looking at a very young player. And the reason why the trade rumors now are starting to pick up a little bit is because the Jets went out and drafted Ashtyn Davis from California in round 2. I know they say they're not moving on from Adams, but we've seen crazier things during the draft and heck, even during free agency. So this show is all about trade ideas. And what I want you guys to do is I want you to scroll on down, because I'm going to make this the pinned comment on today's video. And I want you to come up with your craziest best trade ideas. So you might get with an ad break while the ad is playing. Scroll on down and comment your best trade ideas. A player that we've talked about a bunch on NFL Daily, our rumor show, and a player that Harrison and I talked about on Monday is Leonard Fournette. Why? Because it just seems like every single time a Jags player gets a little bit popular, Jalen Ramsey, Leonard Fournette, Yannick Ngakoue, they kind of just, you got to move on from them. So the fact that there's been a lot of trade talks around him and the fact that there was trade talks during the draft does make me wonder whether or not Fournette's going to stay. I mean, let's be real. If you're Jacksonville, you're trying to rebuild. And yes, I think Fournette had a great year last year, but for a player who's set to make $8.6 million, I don't know if I'm a team, if I'm trying to rebuild, if I'm really trying to pay that much money to a running back. Now, the one knock that Fournette has had against him his entire career is he wasn't able to stay healthy. Well, this past season, he racked up over 1,000 rushing yards. He even added 522 receiving yards. He played 15 games. The only game he ended up missing was week 17, and it was with an illness. And it was also in a game that didn't really matter. The only issue here is with Fournette if the Jags are unable to trade him, they're not going to cut him, because if you cut him, it's going to cost about $4.3 million. And for a team that's got a lot of draft picks, that doesn't have a lot of draft capital, that doesn't have a lot of salary space, I don't think they end up just letting Leonard Fournette go. So will Fournette be traded? That's the $1 million question here. It's actually like a $8.6 million question. Give me a Y for yes. Give me an N for no. And after all these questions that you see on today's show, if you're ever curious what I have to say, you can hit me up on IG. It's at Mitchell Renz 365. All right, let's get into some quarterbacks now. We got a lot of quarterbacks. Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton has been widely speculated to be traded because we all knew it was going to happen. They went out and drafted Joe Burrow #1 overall. And also shout out to Joe Burrow for getting $36 million. 23 of that's going to be guaranteed. And if I'm Andy Dalton, I'm like, well, my time here in Cincinnati is done. The issue is he is still under contract and he's owed $17.7 million for the 2020 season. He will either be traded or he's just going to be straight up released. The issue is going to be there are not many starting quarterback positions out there. I get it. I actually think Andy Dalton is a pretty solid quarterback. I don't really know if he's a starter at this point in his career, but he has had some solid seasons. But if you're looking for a reliable backup, I think Andy Dalton could be your guy. The issue with that is, are you going to pay a reliable backup $17.7 million? The answer to that question should be no. I mean, coming into the 2020 offseason, Marcus Mariota, he was one of the top free agent quarterbacks. He's right now the highest paid backup, making $7.5 million. So that's just kind of a numbers game, just so you have a kind of an idea of what you're dealing with. Andy, I wish you the best of luck, man. But unfortunately, you just got replaced by this guy right here, Joe Burrow. And if you want a Joe Burrow jersey, go to chatsports.com/NFL jersey, because all the 2020 NFL rookie jerseys, they're out now. So if you want a Joe Burrow, you got it. You want a Justin Herbert, you got it. All you have to do, though, is go to chatsports.com/NFL jersey. If you can't remember the link, I'll put it in the comments. I'll put it in the description. And for the jerseys, for the players that haven't announced their numbers yet, you just pre-order, and once they announce your number, you'll be the very first fan to get that jersey. I'm going to say the link one more time, chatsports.com/NFL jersey. All right, we're going to Miami, shouldn't we? And Josh Rosen, I'm wondering if he's going to buy a Tua jersey, because it's probably worth more than his own. So obviously, the Dolphins, they drafted Tua #5 overall, not too much of a surprise there. But with this now, he is the #3 quarterback on the Miami depth chart. And the former first rounder, he's kind of had a big ego, right? I mean, ever since he was at UCLA, Rosen was just one of those dudes who always has the rep for having a very big ego. And if you're a former first round pick, I think you might want to actually a chance to prove that, hey, I'm not a total bust. But in 2018 with the Cardinals, it wasn't pretty. In 2019 with the Dolphins, definitely wasn't pretty. The issue that hurts Rosen is, I don't disagree that he wasn't put in the best situations, but Kyler Murray seemed to do okay in 2019, but Ryan Fitzpatrick seemed to do okay as well this past season with the Dolphins. I just don't really think Rosen's ever going to live up to it. And if you're him, you're not going to get a starting job anywhere. The issue is, where could he be a backup? And even being a backup right now, the options are kind of limited. Let's go to another player who is going to be a backup in 2019. Or 2020. It's Jacoby Brissett. And the important thing to note here is the Indianapolis Colts have already paid Jacoby Brissett his entire contract for 2020. So if they want to actually get something in return, I think the best way you could do it, honestly, is kind of just trade him and get some draft capital. Why? You go out, you get Phillip Rivers in free agency. You're paying him $25 million. Plus, you draft Jacob Eason in round 4, 122 overall. I don't think Jacob Eason will be the quarterback 2 right now. I still think Brissett's the better guy. But if you're trying to build a young dude who you just drafted, who's got an insane upside, I mean, you can't deny that. I mean, Jacob Eason's arm talent is just something that Jacoby Brissett, unfortunately, will never have. I know what Jacoby Brissett is. He is a solid backup quarterback. If you're the Colts, though, you're like, wait a minute, what could I get out of Eason? That's probably where I would invest my time. So for a guy who actually I thought filled in pretty well for Indy last year because of all the crazy Andrew Luck stuff that went down, I'm actually hoping that he does find a new home, and I'm hoping that the Colts can move on from him, because best luck, Jacoby. Sleeper, though, I think he's going to end up going back with the going back with the New England Patriots. All right, so I want you to rank these guys. We just talked about 3 quarterbacks: Andy Dalton, Josh Rosen, Jacoby Brissett. So scroll on down, go in the comments, and rank them from 1, 2 to 3. For me, I'm going to go Andy Dalton, Jacoby Brissett, Josh Rosen. Let's go to the wide receiver position now, where I got Kenny Stills. And Kenny Stills is a fun player to me, and ever since I kind of fell in love with Kenny Stills back when he was with the New Orleans Saints, I'll be honest, he did win me a few fantasy football titles because he'd have those boom games. So the Texans, they traded for Brandon Cooks this offseason, and they also signed Randall Cobb in free agency. So if you're the Texans, which, by the way, still don't know why they moved on from DeAndre Hopkins, your wide receivers are kind of filled at this point, right? I mean, you got Cobb, you got Cooks, you still have Will Fuller. It's kind of like, where exactly does Stills fit? And honestly, I'm not 100% sure. So the fact that trade reports have already come out, the fact that rumors are already starting to sprout, the issue is going to be is Kenny Stills is a fun player, okay? I'm going to show you his stats here in just a sec, but he's a player who's not really going to rack up a bunch of stats, but he is going to stretch the field because you have to respect his speed, and he is a solid special teams player. But am I going to pay Kenny Stills, or a receiver that gives me that type of production, only $7 million? Personally, I'll be interested to see what happens with Stills. Now, one player that actually could impact Stills is another receiver that I think could end up getting traded. It's Alshon Jeffrey, because Jeffrey, Carson Wentz, I don't care what Howie Roseman says. I don't care what the Eagles organization says. Read the tea leaves. Alshon Jeffrey, Carson Wentz, they don't get along, period. Alshon Jeffrey was the player that was accordingly leaking rumor outside of the media. And anytime a player is going to be that type of cancer in the locker room, it's not something I want. Plus, coming off a Liz Frank surgery, with everything going on right now in the Big C around the world, am I going to go out and trade for a receiver making $16.7 million? Probably not. But if you really want this guy out of your locker room, I think you could actually see the Eagles move on from him. And I know some people, I'm not going to mention names, actually I will. Max Kellerman said that the Eagles didn't really try to build around Carson Wentz. I mean, they drafted 3 receivers. You drafted Jalen Reagor in round 1, John Hightower in round 5, Quez Watkins in round 6. Oh, yeah. And you traded for Marquise Goodwin. So you're telling me you've added 4 receivers in the last week. I'm starting to think Alshon Jeffrey, he's going to be on his way out. So I want you to pick a wide receiver. I just talked about Kenny Stills. I talked about Alshon Jeffrey. Which one would you take on your team? Kenny Stills at $7 million, or would you take Alshon Jeffrey at about $16 million? Yeah, tough decision. Type KS for Stills or AJ for Alshon Jeffrey. Let's now go to the offensive guard position. The last guy on my list, it's Joe Thuney. And I love me some Joe Thuney. I really, really do. He's a fun player. He's one of the best offensive guards in the entire league, and that's why he's going to command a top dollar. The issue is here with the New England Patriots, they are building for the future. And I don't think Joe Thuney is the future, despite him being, I believe, only like 28 years old. The fact that when they tagged him back in mid-March, and now that there's not really been any communication, if I'm a Patriots fan, I would be a little bit worried about losing him because he has been one of the most productive guards in the entire NFL. But if he does hit the trade market, and if the Patriots do want to move on from him, he is going to be a very, very hot commodity. Now, if you guys watch this video until the very end, I just want to say thank you. We drop videos all the time, and I mean it. Chat Sports, we are an interactive YouTube channel. So what I want you to do is follow me and DM me on Instagram, the word trade at Mitchell Renz 365, and tell me what you thought about the video.